U.S. President Donald Trump says Israel and Lebanon have agreed to a 10-day ceasefire beginning today at 5 p.m. Washington time. Writing on his Truth Social platform, Trump says he had excellent conversations with President Joseph Aoun of Lebanon and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's invited both leaders to the White House for the first top-level talks between the two nations since 1983. The U.S. president also claims it's the 10th war he has solved. Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has welcomed the ceasefire announcement. In his first reaction, the militant group Hezbollah says any ceasefire must not allow Israel freedom of movement within Lebanon.
Not much, actually. We just know that this ceasefire is supposed to start tonight, midnight local time here in the Middle East, 1 hour earlier in Europe, and that the Israeli authorities traditionally expect increased attacks in Israel's direction before the ceasefire comes into force. That's been the case right now. We've just heard those reports in Israeli media. Other than that, there isn't much we know. The Israeli government has not communicated the ceasefire to the Israeli public so far. There is a cabinet meeting ongoing as we speak, in which Israeli ministers traditionally vote on such decisions. It's yet to be seen what sort of discussions took place in this cabinet meeting, but at the same time, President Trump's announcement has been made, and it remains to be seen what's going to happen in the coming hours up until the ceasefire.
Assuming that this is accurate, what Donald Trump has posted on his social media account, that we do have a ceasefire coming into effect later on today between Lebanon and Israel, what would happen next, do you suppose? Can we expect negotiations to proceed for the time beyond what is right now said to be a 10-day window for the ceasefire?
Well, you certainly get the feeling, reading Israeli newspapers, reading social media feeds of Israeli ministers, that the Israeli government does not necessarily trust the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah, thus disarming the threat to the residents of north of Israel. So it remains to be seen how this develops. At the same time, as we've just seen, the pressure from the U.S., led by U.S. President Donald Trump, seems to be stronger than the Israeli government's thoughts or reservations on the ceasefire. And one could assume that this sort of pressure could also lead to the negotiations continuing. But again, there are too many open questions at the moment, both regarding Hezbollah and whether they would obey this ceasefire, and in terms of the IDF's forces already in Lebanon. This remains to be, I assume this is going to be leaked to the Israeli media, and we're going to hear more from Lebanese sources in the coming hours. But at the moment, we just don't know enough to say more than President Trump has just, from the content that President Trump has just tweeted.
You've mentioned Hezbollah a couple of times, and skepticism within Israeli society about whether the Lebanese government will disarm Hezbollah. There are also questions about whether it's capable of disarming Hezbollah. Short of Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militant group in Lebanon, short of Hezbollah disarming, what conditions could possibly bring about a permanent end to this conflict? Do you see a chance for that?
Well, Terry, the official government policy in Israel is that Hezbollah is basically the only hurdle to this conflict ending. At the same time, it needs to be said that there is a minority of far-right supporters in Israel that see this as an opportunity to potentially increase the country's borders. This minority has representation in Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Their representation has a lot of political power, and we just a few days ago, at the establishment, at the ceremony of the establishment of a new settlement in the occupied West Bank, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who is part of this far-right element within Benjamin Netanyahu's government, explicitly said that this government's aim could be increasing Israel's borders into what is today Lebanon. So it remains to be seen whether those far-right elements of Israeli society and politics are going to have it their way. We also have to remember that Israel is in election year. The elections are going to be held here in October. And this is going to be a massive test to Benjamin Netanyahu's future as Israeli prime minister.
So the relationship between what's going on in this conflict with Hezbollah in Lebanon and also what's going on in Iran, it must be said, is very important for the political developments, particularly for Netanyahu. So how do Israelis feel about the prospects for diplomacy in this situation?
I think we need to make a separation between the situations in Lebanon and Iran. Those are two very, very different situations in the eyes of Israelis. Most Israelis would tell you that they have no problems, neither with Iranians nor with the Lebanese people, that they wish to have peace with both peoples. But the obstacles on the way to such a reality are both the Iranian regime, the Islamic Republic, and indeed Hezbollah. I think most Israelis, in terms of the comments you get here on the street and the opinion polls, media reports, and so on, you get the feeling that that many Israelis are very skeptical of both Hezbollah and the Islamic Republic turning to diplomacy in good faith. For instance, when it comes to Lebanon, there was an opinion poll just about a week ago that suggested that 80% of Israelis believe the military operation in Lebanon should continue, just because they do not trust Hezbollah, and they do not think the negotiations would lead anywhere. It remains to be seen what's going to happen after the start of this ceasefire in a few hours from now.
Felix, thank you very much. That was our correspondent Felix Tamsut in Jerusalem. In just the last couple of minutes, Prime Minister Netanyahu has confirmed that Israel has agreed to the ceasefire, but said Israel plans to stay in Lebanon to create a security zone. DW's Beirut Bureau Chief Mohamad Chreyteh told us more about Iran's role in these latest developments.
A very big role, indeed. It's hard to imagine that Hezbollah would really adhere and agree to a ceasefire without consent from Iran. In fact, the Iranians have been blaming the Lebanese government of delaying a ceasefire that has already been on the table during the cessation of attacks between the U.S. and Israel. Hezbollah is funded and backed by Iran, and it's really hard to imagine that Hezbollah would be involved in any sort of talks or agree to any sort of security agreements or any sort of even ceasefire without consent from Iran. That would be illusion.